So hello everyone and welcome to our WePlay Q&A session. A year later, a year stronger. I'm delighted to be joined by Foster Horan of the Ireland Rugby Sevens, hockey captain Katie Mullan and Darragh Greene, international swimmer. So guys, you're all very welcome back to the Q&A. We've had lots of questions in. People are very curious about what you've been up to and what kind of training you've been doing. Foster, I'm going to start with you. First question is about how you got into sport and maybe when you're telling me about that, just the other sports that you played when you were a kid as well.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I have two older brothers, and both of them would have started rugby, and they would have brought me along and sort of would have thrown me a ball when I was younger, and we would have played around. So I first would have got into my local club in Gorey, I would have played through there, and then would have got introduced into the school system and sort of pushed on into sort of provincial setups from there. And I also, like when I was younger, I would have played like a lot of hurling and football and soccer. So I would have played a range of different sports. And when I went into school, I went into a bit of athletics, and I would have ran a bit of track around 100 metre. But I came to the point where rugby and athletics sort of clashed, and I went into the rugby then after that.
So you managed to gather a lot of transferable skills then, Foster?
Yeah, pretty much, exactly, yeah.
So Katie, what about you? How did you get into sports and what were the sports that you played?
I suppose growing up, I played kind of every sport under the sun. I have two older brothers, so anything they were doing, I wanted to try as well. Camogie was probably my first love, so I played a lot of camogie growing up, and then at the age of about 16, I had to make the choice as to which sport I would kind of continue on taking that bit more seriously. But yeah, how I got into hockey was the hockey club was just across the road from my house, and I think it was a bit of a cheap babysitting service for my mum on a Saturday morning. The minis was from 9 till 12 every Saturday morning, so she used to send me and my sisters over there for the few hours, and that's how I kind of started playing hockey.
Katie, is it hard to kind of have to give up one to make the other one work?
Yeah, it was an incredibly tough decision for me. It was a decision I sort of had to make when I was choosing which secondary school to go to, because one was primarily a hockey school and the other was primarily for camogie and Gaelic games. So it's tough as an 11-year-old to make such a career-defining decision. And I think the thing that kind of makes it even harder is that you're kind of choosing your friends as well, because quite often your teammates are your closest friends. So yeah, it's not easy for any youngsters, but I suppose the nice thing is now that I do focus on hockey, I still have really strong links with the camogie team and all of my ex-teammates, and I still go for puck arounds and stuff with them. So yeah, they're very supportive.
So it worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Dara, what about you?
Yeah, so I was put in swimming fairly young. Mum just wanted me and my two other siblings to be water safe, because it's one of the big life kind of tasks you need, especially if you go on holidays or whatever. But that was the one big thing. So yeah, I was at swimming from the age of probably competitively the age of 8, but at the same time I wasn't really had much interest in it whatsoever. I was playing all other sports from Gaelic, soccer, rugby, tennis, and all them, and then swimming would have been at the bottom of my kind of interests out of them all. I wouldn't have put in a lot of effort into training or that. Would have been always the guy at the end of the pool just like messing about or whatever. Then I came to my 3rd year in junior cert, and I broke my leg playing rugby with the lads. And yeah, so I went from like doing a load of sports to absolutely nothing, which was fairly hard. So once I got my cast off, the physios were put me straight back into kind of swimming as a rehab, and straight away it was like this pretty much found a love for it again, and just decided to put in a load of effort into it, because it's just trying to strengthen it back my leg. But obviously I started getting faster and stuff, so then I didn't bother taking up any other sport around that, and I just focused all on swimming. And yeah, that's it.
Did you display a talent for it, we'll say, before you broke your leg? Was it something that you were always good at, or something that you got really good at when you were doing your rehab and post-injury?
I had a bit of a talent for breaststroke. So like breaststroke, out of all 4 strokes, they either say you're a swimmer or a breaststroker because it's such an unnatural stroke. And when it comes to training, that's the only thing I wanted to do. Like when I was young, in my junior kind of club age, anything breaststroke I was all over. But when it came to any of the other strokes, I had no interest in doing it. And all I wanted to do was race. So yeah, found out the hard way that you kind of have to get your technique down in the other 4 or 3 strokes to actually get a bit faster. But yeah.
Foster, we do have some interesting times ahead now when it comes to resuming sport and resuming training. And some people love training, some people hate it. And as Dara said there was a part of his sport that he really loved. Is there a part of training that you really like, that stimulates you, that you can't wait to get back in it and do kind of full throttle again?
Yeah, look, I can't wait to get back in and have a ball in hand. Like I was just saying, running around on your own is pretty hard. You're just chasing your own shadow. So when you're out with the lads and you've got a ball in hand and you're even doing simple things like 3v2 or 2v2s, like it makes such a difference, and it's a lot more competitive and it's much more enjoyable. Anyway, you wouldn't feel the miles in the legs after when you're chasing the ball, but when you're out running, it's a lot tougher.
Katie, what about you? What stimulates you when it comes to training? Is it skills? Is it fitness? Is it gym?
It's definitely those combative 8v8s that I mentioned before. There's just a huge amount of competition in them, and similar to what Foster is saying, you're working so incredibly hard, but you don't notice it because your mind is focused on the game and what's going on around you. And yeah, that feeling of just being on all fours after a 6-minute set. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back to that.
Is there anything that you don't like, Katie?
I wouldn't really enjoy just going out and running with no kind of stimulus, no sticker ball. Yeah, just pure fitness. I don't really enjoy that much, but it has to be done.
Foster, is there anything that you don't like?
Yeah, the same as Katie there, just pure fitness. Like we generally have it's a fitness test called a Bronco. We generally have them when we go back to training, so I'm dreading the thoughts of getting back into that now.
So Dara, what about you? Is there a part of your sport and your training for your sport that you really love?
Yeah, we kind of more just key sets or the kind of sprint and racing sets we do to, as said, Foster and Katie said, it's really just a competitiveness in training that kind of makes it a lot more interesting.
We've had a question in specifically about your training sets, and which one is your favorite?
Which one's my favorite would be probably, there's one that we do, I think it's as many 50s as we can, but they descend the time, so it's it's an impossible set to actually complete. So yeah, it's kind of, you have to go all out, and it takes off 10 seconds each time, and so you have to try and, yeah, it's a funny old set.
Sounds like fun. And what about is there any parts of training that you don't like?
Anything that doesn't really involve breaststroke, I wouldn't really have much interest in it.
I can imagine, yeah, that's so funny. So we're going to go back a little bit, or maybe might actually not be that far back, but it's sporting memories. And Foster, what's your sporting memory? It doesn't have to be one that you've been involved in. It could be just your first memory, or if it is one you're involved with, then that's okay as well.
Yeah, so I suppose the one that really sticks out for me is Hong Kong. I spoke about it in the last play, and it was a great tournament. It was something that we'd worked on from the very start of the program. Ever since the program started, it was sort of a goal we had put out there as a team, and it was great that we got over there and achieved it. And just like the memories that we had over there, my brother actually came out, and it was a great tournament, and it was great for the whole program. It really pushed us up into, onto the series and onto the world platform, so it was great.
And in terms of like something that you weren't involved in, do you have any kind of memories or like a sporting moment that will stick with you forever?
I suppose for me, the Rugby World Cup in 2003 really sticks out in my mind. I was sort of at the age I was only around 10. I was young, and it was sort of one sort of tournament I remember really comes to mind. You know, England won it, and it was Johnny Wilkinson kicked a drop goal in extra time, which was something unbelievable. That'll probably never happen again for a while. But I remember that really that's when I really fell in love with the sport, and that's when I really wanted to sort of represent my country within rugby.
Katie, what about you? Your favorite sporting moment that you're involved in, and maybe one that you weren't involved in but inspired you in some sort of way?
Probably the one I was involved in. People are probably sick of us talking about it, but the World Cup final. I suppose when we flew over to London, like we never imagined that the day would come that we would be running out the tunnel past the World Cup trophy. The only day it was on the pitch was for the World Cup final, and I remember going out to do the toss, and it was just such an honour to lead the girls out that day and running directly past the trophy. Like, I don't think we ever imagined we'd be that close to it. So that was definitely a moment that is etched in my brain that I'll never forget. And then when it comes to one that I wasn't involved in, it would have to be watching Shane Lowry win the Open last year. Just because Portrush Golf Club is one of my local golf courses. It's only a couple of minutes down the road, so I've spent a lot of time down around there, and being on the 18th green when he was coming up it, knowing that he'd won the Open on like our turf with all those people, and just seeing the Irish fans, it brought back a lot of emotion from our World Cup experience even, but just being there to witness that and him winning and it being held in Ireland as well, it was very special.
It must be an amazing feeling to know that in like 5 years, 10 years time, there'll probably be someone else sitting here, and when I ask them what their favorite ever sporting moment was, or a moment that inspired them, will be that hockey game that you played in.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that we still don't quite understand the magnitude of it, and that's only going to become more apparent in years to come. So it's incredibly special, especially for the youngsters. I know growing up as a young hockey player, we didn't quite have a memory like that to kind of push us on from previous teams. So it'll be really, really special to see how that'll have influenced youngsters.
For sure, and you're not done yet either. Dara, what about you? Sporting memory that you were involved in and something that inspired you?
Sport memory that I would have been involved in would have been probably last summer's World Championship, because it was one of the first kind of major competitions that had really a lot on the line for. And I've done myself been involved in so many competitions representing Ireland, but at the same time, when it comes down to that one race that you can make and break, as in like qualify yourself for the Olympic Games, you can't really experience that anywhere else really when it comes down to it. And that was kind of the defining moment there. And inspiring moment would have been probably for me starting off to look at it competitively would have been watching Michael Phelps in 2008 when his ridiculous amount of medals, 8 gold, and that between Irish probably when Katie Taylor won her gold medal in boxing was pretty cool. So
yeah, good ones to have for sure. Foster, there's a lot of interest in I suppose sport off the field, whether it's like sports science and GPS tracking and fitness and tactics and things like that. Do you spend much time doing analysis, we'll say before a game, of opposition, of yourself, just homework wise? How much homework would you do before you go and play a big game?
Yeah, so within sevens, for day one anyway, we know our opposition generally, so we know the first three teams we're playing. So we would get a lot of analysis done on all the different teams we'd be playing. We'd be looking into their like lineouts, scrums, kickoffs, where they like to attack. So we'd break down each team, and then generally on a day two, it's more into like a quarter-final, semi-final, final sort of scenario. So you're not sure what team you could be coming up against. So before the game, we'd have a meeting generally 10 minutes before we go out for a warm-up, and we'd break down the team within like a 10 or 15-minute window. And so we just break it down to each compartment, as I've said, around the kickoffs, scrums, and lineouts, and sort of go have a look at what their go-tos are.
Katie, what about you?
Yeah, I suppose similar, except we have a lot more time to analyse the opposition. We know for months who's in our group, and we'll spend, we'll work through and we'll do 2-week blocks of one team and then move on to the next team. And it's very, very specific. We'll know every player inside out, from what colour her shoes are to what stick brand she uses. And it becomes a bit competitive even in the team environment as to how well you know them. But there's quite a lot of triggers and trends in hockey, so the analysis side of it has become a huge part of the game, especially when it comes to set pieces. So we would spend an incredible amount of time analysing penalty corner attack and penalty corner defence, because those often lead to goals for and against. So yeah, there is definitely a huge change in the sport in that the tactical analysis has become huge, and the video analysis, we have access to every game we've played and most nations have played for the last number of years, so we can watch them all day, every day if we please.
And what about swimming, Dara? When you're going for a race, how much do tactics come into play?
Tactics, I've learned now that is a huge thing in swimming. Really, you revolve your whole training race sets around how you're going to swim it on the day, whether that's broken down to your 100, 75, 50, 25, how many strokes you're going to hit, to how you're going to hit that turn. And everything's really, really like fine detailed. But at the same time, you still have to know if you are swimming against other people as well, instead of actually swimming your own race. If the race goes ahead and the lad beside you decides to dart out, you kind of have to scrap your race strategy and kind of go with him and go with the race itself, and kind of think on your feet then, and as the race goes on.
So there's obviously a lot of pressure that comes with it when you're, before you even step into the water, or when you're in the water. How do you deal with the pressured situations of being a swimmer?
Actually, you do notice the pressure, but at the same time you can either make it a positive or a negative. I try and transfer it into a positive, and the more bigger the kind of opportunity or the event is, the more I kind of get a big buzz out of it, and kind of use that to put into my performance instead of hinder it kind of way.
And Katie, what about you? When you're in a World Cup final and you're going up for the toss and you're leading your country, how do you deal with that pressure moment like that?
I suppose for me, it's always been about routine. So I have certain kind of routines on match day that stay the same, whether it is a World Cup final or whether we've gone over to Glasgow to play Scotland in a couple of friendlies. And I find that helps, that helps with the pressure in terms of not overthinking the game and just playing a game that presents itself in front of you. And the other thing is, I find that the crowd, you can kind of create a mindset with the crowd that it only encourages you to kind of smile and enjoy yourself, and that kind of helps put the kind of pressure to the back of your mind, or the fear that you might feel. Because quite often they are behind you and they just want the best for you. So yeah, that's how I kind of try to manage it.
You certainly looked like you were enjoying yourselves anyway at the World Cup. The smiles. Foster, what about you when it comes to pressure? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, so pressure, I found myself, pre-match is probably one of the hardest places to be, because you're obviously very nervous before you go out. So within sevens, it's more nearly a mental toughness than it is physical toughness, as you've 6 games. So before the 6 games, you're going through that sort of emotions. So I found initially it was very tough to get used to that, but then after a while I managed, as Katie was saying, like getting your routine set, getting your sort of warm up going, and sort of feeding off that energy and using that energy to get you through the game and sort of live in the moment really when you're out on the field.
We see now in sport that there's so many different people who are involved in coaching, different styles of coaching and management and philosophies, and there's been endless books written about what makes a successful coach. And Foster, just from just a purely team player point of view, what kind of coaching strategy do you like? Do you like the arm around the shoulder, or like the tough love? What's your preference for a coach?
I like a bit of like tough love, as in just tell it how it is and sort of learn from it quickly. I find like we react well to sort of that. I remember there was one stage when we were in the Hong Kong tournament, and we went out into the quarterfinal. We'd played like previously a couple of games before, we hadn't played very well. I remember our coach sort of gave us a good grilling, and it really sort of switched us on from that moment on, and we never really looked back. So I think it really comes down to a coach is knowing when to sort of give you that tough love, and then when to put the arm around the shoulder and sort of like take you through it then, you know.
I love watching Jurgen Klopp. Oh, it seems like he's got the arms around, he's giving hugs, but I'd say behind it now he's tough out. Katie, what about you? Just coach-wise, what kind of a relationship would you have with kind of coaches in general?
Yeah, pretty good. I think it's very different in a team sport, because as a player you only have your relationship with the coach, but the coach has to manage maybe 30 different relationships, which can be tricky. But I suppose the best coaching is just when the communication lines are really, really strong and open, and whether that's through criticism or tough conversations, or whether it's through positivity or putting an arm around a player, I think the most important thing is that those communication lines are open. And there's nothing worse than not really knowing where players sit, and even if it is negative information, like we're all big enough and bold enough to handle that. So I suppose just coaches being honest and frank about how they're feeling or where you're sitting is often, I think, the best policy, because silence can be a killer sometimes.
Dara, what about you? And individual sports obviously a little bit different for you. What works best for you when it comes to dealing with your coach?
Definitely the relationship, as in we both kind of have a voice in the whole kind of my swimming career. So it's not just like I get orders, the sets done from say Ben, and that's it. I don't have an input in my training or anything like that, especially like with swimming. It's so individual on what actually works for you and what doesn't. So that's a really good thing we have. It's anything we do, we like pretty much confirm it together. And yeah, it's just knowing to give us facts and figures of it all when needed. So like straight to the point, what I need to do, and we get down to it.
Collaboration, sounds good.
Exactly.
Foster, we have a question in about friends and friends that you make through sport and the importance of them. Are you friends with a lot of your teammates? Has it worked out like that for you?
No, you definitely. Within the sevens anyway, you've only got such a small group of guys who are doing a lot of traveling and living together for long times, long periods. So it's all about being like good mates and everyone getting on. And I feel like within the squad, there's really good connections with all the boys, and everyone gets on so well. And then even through sport, throughout my whole life, like even like there's guys I would have played in school and even club level back in Gorey when I was under 12s, and I'm still good mates with them, and I'd still meet up with them and at the weekend. So like that's great. Like you've got friends pretty much for life after playing through these sort of different sports and that,
What about you, Katie? I heard you saying you go for a puck around with the girls from your old camogie team. All right, so it seems like you've built a lot of strong relationships through sport.
Yeah, definitely. Most of my friends are friends through sport, whether even it's girls I played hockey with, well, dragged out to play hockey on our school team. Those are my closest friends, and just within our team environment, like we all get on very well and we are good friends. And I think that's become especially apparent at this time when we're not playing our sport, that we're still in quite good contact and chatting on Zoom and stuff like that. It shows the friendships that are there. I think as well, there's certain things you experience in sport that build like a level of trust that you maybe don't have with other friends. So for example, the heartbreak of not qualifying for Rio brought us incredibly close together, and we kind of went through something together that I think will last forever. And there's certain things that if I was in a moment of crisis, I know I could pick up the phone to my hockey teammates and they'd be the first there. So yeah, it's a different type of friendship. It's very strong and built on a strong foundation.
Dara, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. Pretty much all my close friends will be through sport and swimming itself, and mainly because like they know kind of the sacrifice. They've been through all the trainings and stuff, so they know what to expect from you when you're pretty much like not in much contact with them, depending on whether that's a competition that week or you're just in hard training and stuff. They understand, while other people wouldn't, kind of thing. So yeah, definitely made a lot of close friends through sport.
Foster, if somebody wanted to get involved in sevens, how would they even start? Where would they start?
So I'd say I definitely start off looking into your local club, your local rugby club, and looking to start at a younger age. You can definitely start through there. And then if you're older, maybe even look to start with tag rugby is a good sort of way to get into rugby, to sort of learn the skills, and like a lot of skills are transferable across. And it takes away that contact element if you're not so confident in going straight into contact, and then you can sort of build from there and try get yourself into a rugby sort of setup from there.
And Katie, for hockey?
Yeah, so there's hockey clubs all over the country. The Hockey Ireland website, you can find your local hockey club on there. I also think summer camps are brilliant. So each of the provinces run summer camps, and quite often they cater for all levels, and it's kind of 2 or 3 days in a row of just like learning the basics. For kids, they're brilliant. I coach often at them. They're great fun and a great way to meet people. And then there's a couple of like programs going on around the country for like adults starting hockey. So some of the clubs run like specific clubs for mums, so mums and others hockey groups, or there's also a scheme called Get Into Hockey, and it was created in the build up to Tokyo. So the whole idea of it is to get more people playing hockey, but also more people understanding hockey, because we kind of found that we're getting all these fans and supporters, but 9 times out of 10 they don't necessarily know the rules or understand what's going on. So it's kind of a way as well to teach people about the sport when they're spectating, especially with all the funky rules around video referrals and penalty corner rules and stuff. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to get involved.
Penalty corner makes perfect sense. I don't know what you're talking about. Dara, if anyone wants to take up swimming and emulate you, follow in your footsteps, how would they even go about it?
Well, Swim Ireland have put together, like for a young age, learn to swim, and even your local clubs. That's where I started, anyways, with Longford. And for the event they have now is the Swim for a Mile event, so that's for all ages, and it starts from any kind of experienced swimmers, so someone who can do 2 lengths all the way up, and they have clinics and trainings all around the country. So it's a group training as well, so it's a bit of a social aspect, and they bring them up through the 12 weeks to be able to swim at the Swim for a Mile event, which is a it's a fairly big event, fun event at the end of the day. So it's for all ages really.
A few tricky ones for you guys now. Foster, what's your favourite food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
For breakfast, I actually love my cereals. So I generally nip and tuck out different cereals, and then I'd always have eggs for breakfast as well. So 4 or 5 boiled eggs for breakfast.
How many?
4 or 5. Yeah, so have to get your protein in, isn't that it? And then for lunch, I'd like a lot of venison, so like I'd go for a roast venison. And then for my dinner, then I'd look to go for just I love spaghetti bolognese, so I'd look to go down that way.
Katie?
Would be poached eggs, avocado. Lunch would be I'm a sucker for like a goat's cheese salad of some sort. And dinner I would probably choose like grilled salmon and asparagus, something like that.
Healthy. Dara?
Yeah, I'd be big for the eggs in the morning. Eggs and say a bagel with rashers or something. Lunch would probably be say turkey burgers or something that I can just throw on. And dinner will be something probably be the same as Foster. I'd go spag roll, spaghetti bolognese.
You're all very, very healthy. Foster, if you won the lotto, what would be the first thing that you would buy?
I think the first thing I'd buy would be a haircut anyway after this quarantine. So, but other than that, I'm not sure. That's a tough one. I don't know. I'd probably look to buy a house or something like that. So I would, bit of property.
Katie?
Well, believe it or not, the school I played all of my hockey growing up in still doesn't have a hockey pitch. So I think if I won the lottery, I would buy them a world-class hockey facility to kind of try to give back after all they done for me. And also, it's just crazy that they still don't have a surface there. So yeah, that would be mine.
And Dara, what about you?
I'd definitely kind of set up another 50-meter pool, probably in my back garden. So if anything like this happens again, I'll be sorted.
Foster, I'll have to go back to you again because they were very diplomatic with their answers and they were picking facilities. Is there anything that you'd buy?
I probably buy a gym to put out in my back garden as well, something like Dara there, so I could get in during the quarantine.
Sure, Foster can play rugby anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, would you like to ask each other any questions?
I have one for Foster. What do you have left to do to qualify for Tokyo?
So we have World Repechage. So it's pretty much all the teams that are left out of the different continent groups. And we've, I say it was due to be played in June 2020, but it's been postponed now till next year. So.
And where is that?
It's not 100% certain, like laid out yet, but I think it was meant to be out in Chile, in Santiago in Chile, yeah. So that'll be interesting.
So Katie Mullan, Darragh Greene and Foster Horan, thanks so much for joining me. A year later, a year stronger, and hopefully the next time we catch up, we'll all be getting back to normal in some sort of way, and then you'll be back training. Thanks again.